Hello to all our audience tuning into our channel. We're so glad to have you with us. Stay tuned for exciting content. Let's get started.
2 weeks after an unspecified incident, Gotham City is consumed by a brutal gang war between longtime enemies Salvatore Maroni and Carmine Falcone. The conflict's origins remain unclear, but it stems from their long-standing power struggle. Meanwhile, Bruce Wayne searches Wayne Manor for secrets about his deceased father, convinced something important is hidden there. Alfred tries to dissuade him, insisting Thomas Wayne was simply a sober, diligent man who worked late nights in his study with classical music playing. Alfred recalls how Thomas would lock his study door while working, allowing no disturbances. Bruce becomes fixated on this detail, questioning why his father needed to lock the door. Despite Alfred's protests that doors are meant to be locked, Bruce remains convinced his father's secret lies within that very room, growing increasingly agitated as he declares his certainty about finding hidden truth.
At the police station, Officer Katz receives advice from a cynical superior about the department's corruption and his own precarious position. The scene shifts to Dr. Thompkins, conducting a final medical checkup on Barbara Keene, who has recovered physically from her traumatic ordeal. Despite the doctor's strong recommendations for trauma counseling, Barbara insists she's fine and happy to be alive. She specifically requests that Dr. Thompkins provide the counseling at her apartment, which the doctor initially refuses before reluctantly agreeing. Their conversation is interrupted by chaos at the station and urgent news. Don Falcone has been attacked. Maroni's men bombed his car, leaving him hospitalized and near death. The attack appears to have official sanction, with City Hall and influential figures switching their support to Maroni. This development represents a significant shift in Gotham's criminal power structure, with authorities believing someone needed to be eliminated to end the costly gang war. In a shocking revelation, Penguin visits the hospitalized and vulnerable Falcone to confess his ultimate betrayal. He reveals that he orchestrated the entire gang war from the beginning, planning Falcone's downfall from their first meeting. Despite acknowledging Falcone as a wise mentor and good friend, Penguin coldly explains that business must come first. He declares his intention to replace Falcone as the new king of Gotham, showing no remorse for his calculated deception. Falcone, stunned by this revelation, tells Penguin he will never succeed and damns him to hell. Penguin admits to worrying about damnation, but insists Falcone will precede him there. This scene demonstrates Penguin's long-term strategic thinking and ruthless ambition, revealing the depth of his manipulation and planning. The confrontation highlights the brutal nature of Gotham's criminal underworld, where loyalty means nothing compared to power and personal advancement. Detective Gordon faces a moral crisis when he arrests both Penguin and Gilzelian for attempted murder, while Falcone lies vulnerable in the hospital. Maroni's men demand Falcone's release, claiming official decree, but Gordon refuses to abandon his principles. Falcone argues that Maroni's leadership would bring chaos to Gotham, insisting he needs 2 days at his safe house to regain control and eliminate his rivals. Gordon finds himself torn between his duty as a police officer and his understanding of Gotham's criminal ecosystem. When Maroni's men arrive to finish Falcone, Gordon makes a controversial decision to help the crime boss escape, believing him to be the least worst option for the city's stability. Commissioner Loeb arrives and orders Gordon to leave, essentially sanctioning Falcone's execution. Gordon openly defies his superior, calling him a disgrace and threatening future justice. Harvey Bullock reluctantly assists Gordon in the escape, despite his reservations about their dangerous gamble. The scene shifts to Falcone's safe house, where the crime boss reflects on recent events while trying to remain hidden. Barbara experiences psychological trauma, feeling like her current reality is a dream and fearing her tormentor's return. Fish Mooney makes a dramatic reappearance, reuniting with Butch in an emotional scene that reveals she survived whatever ordeal she endured. The various characters find themselves in precarious situations, with alliances shifting and loyalties tested. Selina Kyle appears at the safe house, maintaining her characteristic detached attitude when asked for help. The scene establishes multiple storylines converging, with each character facing their own challenges and moral dilemmas. The safe house becomes a temporary refuge, but tensions remain high as various factions pursue their own agendas while trying to survive the ongoing gang war. Fish Mooney stages a dramatic comeback, revealing her survival to both allies and enemies. She confronts Penguin and Falcone, having made a deal with Maroney to reclaim her territories in exchange for Falcone's head. Fish demonstrates her ruthless nature, while showing particular cruelty toward Penguin, whom she blames for Butch's condition. Meanwhile, Barbara undergoes therapy with Dr. Thompkins, discussing her past relationships and revealing concerning details about her psychology. She expresses disturbing views about passion and violence, asking inappropriate questions about Jim Gordon's potential for aggression. The therapy session reveals Barbara's damaged mental state following her traumatic experiences. Fish's return creates new complications in the power struggle, as she positions herself as a major player in Gotham's criminal hierarchy. Her reunion with Butch is emotional, but tinged with the knowledge of what he's endured. The scene explores themes of loyalty, betrayal, and the psychological toll of violence on all characters involved. During a therapy session with Dr. Thompkins, Barbara makes a shocking confession about her role in her parents' deaths. She reveals that Jason Lennon took her on a road trip to her parents' house where he forced her to confront childhood grievances. Barbara describes feeling neglected and misunderstood by her parents, who called her little piggy and failed to nurture her self-esteem. In a disturbing twist, she claims she personally killed her parents, stabbing them multiple times and slitting their throats while they watched in confusion. Dr. Thompkins tries to rationalize that Lennon was responsible, but Barbara insists on her own culpability. The confession reveals the extent of Barbara's psychological damage and her capacity for violence. Her matter-of-fact description of the murders and lack of remorse indicates severe mental trauma. The session ends abruptly when Barbara becomes uncomfortable with the doctor's reactions, highlighting the difficulty of treating someone so deeply affected by violence and manipulation. The climax arrives as various storylines converge in violent confrontation. Fish Mooney faces off against her enemies, while Butch struggles with mind control that forces him to act against his true loyalties. The psychological manipulation becomes evident as Butch is ordered to shoot Fish, creating internal conflict between his programming and genuine feelings. Barbara's mental state deteriorates further, leading to a violent outburst that endangers Dr. Thompkins. The confrontation reveals the true extent of the damage done to various characters' psyches through torture and manipulation. Fish's death appears imminent, but she maintains her characteristic defiance even in her final moments. Penguin's declaration that he is the king of Gotham represents his ultimate victory, though it comes at enormous cost. The scene demonstrates how violence begets violence in Gotham's criminal underworld, with each character's choices leading to tragic consequences. The resolution of the gang war leaves the city under new management, but the psychological scars remain. Edward Nygma's obsessive behavior toward Miss Kringle intensifies when she discovers a hidden message in a note from Officer Doherty. The first letters of each line spell out NYGMA, creating suspicion about Doherty's disappearance. Nygma's attempts to dismiss this as coincidence failed to convince Kringle, who becomes increasingly wary of his strange behavior. The scene reveals Nygma's internal dialogue with a darker aspect of his personality, showing his psychological split between his timid public persona and his more sinister impulses. his alter ego encourages more aggressive behavior, suggesting that fear might be more effective than affection in winning Kringle's attention. The subplot explores themes of obsession, mental illness, and the dangerous potential of seemingly harmless individuals. Nigma's inability to control his compulsive need to leave clues demonstrates the self-destructive nature of his psychological condition. His colleagues' growing awareness of his oddness foreshadows future complications as his carefully maintained facade begins to crumble under scrutiny. The final chapter brings resolution to Bruce Wayne's search for his father's secrets. Falcone shares a personal story about Thomas Wayne, revealing their close relationship and Thomas's gift of a knife, with the inscription, "A knife is a good friend when you have no other." This revelation humanizes Thomas Wayne while suggesting he understood Gotham's dangerous nature. Bruce's investigation culminates in discovering a hidden mechanism in his father's study, triggered by his knowledge of Stoic philosophy and Marcus Aurelius. Despite Alfred's protests and fears about potential dangers, Bruce's intuition proves correct about his father's secret life. The discovery of what appears to be a hidden stereo system suggests Thomas Wayne had indeed concealed something significant from his family. Alfred's resistance to Bruce's investigation reflects his protective instincts and possibly his own knowledge of Thomas's secrets. The chapter establishes the foundation for Bruce's future understanding of his father's true nature and his own destiny in Gotham's fight against corruption and crime.